everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. The aforementioned George Hendrickson joins us. George is the studio manager at Sculpture Space. What does a studio manager do, George?
Wears many hats usually. I take care of the space and the facilities, as well as help the artists coming through for their residency source different materials, work with old and or new materials and equipment, either train them on things they haven't experienced before or work with them on older techniques and apply it to their new artwork.
My guess is that some of these artists come in there and look at some of the equipment that's down there and don't even know how to operate it, correct?
There's quite a bit of that, but it's not unusual. You have to realize most of the artists that do come through haven't touched some of the larger pieces of equipment since their days in school. It's fairly expensive. It's hard to maintain a studio space that's large, and that's why Sculpture Space as a residency program is popular for its access to those types of equipment.
Where will you be on September 29th?
September 29th, I'll be at Sculpture Space in the studio, probably selling 50-50 raffle tickets.
Okay. As I was talking with Charlie, this is an important event for Sculpture Space, right?
Oh, it certainly is. This is our big event of the year. We look forward to it. We're excited about doing it, and we put a lot of work in the number of weeks leading up to it as well.
And a nice opportunity, as Charlie was mentioning, for somebody to liven up their home with some original artwork.
There's an amazing array of artwork, from alumni from past years to a ton of local artists that are just great about donating work to us year in and year out. And we always look forward to seeing what they have on offer.
If somebody, speaking about seeing stuff, if somebody wants to see some of the art that's come out of Sculpture Space, there's a very good example up at the former Griffiths Air Force Base. That's
right. Griffiths, in conjunction with Sculpture Space, when it first started a sculpture park. Many of you listeners, I'm sure, have seen it or experienced it firsthand. But most all of the work there are Sculpture Space alum. A ton of beautiful pieces to see, and they're always looking to change out and bring in new work.
And when I was down at Sculpture Space the other day, George, it looks like you're starting to display things down at Sculpture Space, yes?
Well, I'm glad you noticed, sure.
Yeah.
Tom Montana, our new ED, that one of his big pushes is to try and incorporate work into our own space. We have a lot of space in our yard, and we would like to morph that into a sculpture park. We already have, if I can count quickly, we already have 6 pieces on display, and looking to add more.
There was a woman down there, I don't know if you're familiar with this or not, but she's doing something off to the side of the property there. It used to be a house, and she's doing something.
And Reichland, yeah.
Yeah.
She is a sculptor working with Sculpture Space on old foundations. She's creating a work called Traces, where she outlines with flowers or perennials the foundations of old homes that used to be in that part of Utica. So it's a wonderful tie back into our history of the space. And she also has built upon an old foundation a sculpture of a home just on the side of the property.
The residency program, that's a key element to what's going on down there on Gate Street. And explain to people how that residency program works.
Sure. As Charlie was talking to you earlier, as Sculpture Space morphed into a residency, a formalized residency program, we have 2 months allocated to an artist who applies to Sculpture Space. We get about 300 applications a year. We accept about 20. We get about 20 alternates. They spend 2 months with us creating new work, working on projects that have already been proposed, or coming into the space to experiment with materials and or their process. So we really are process driven in the residency program.
And these folks, these artists that come into Utica, they come from throughout the United States, throughout the world, really.
Really international. They come from all over.
Yeah.
We have a number of people coming in from Padova, Italy, coincidentally 2 artists from the same town in Italy next month, so very interesting.
And the residency program does more than just enable these artists to work. It also takes care of their place to live, yes?
Yeah, the home we have is right around the corner on Wiley Street, and we have a 2-story home there that they purchased a number of years back. We, at one point, looked for places for them to stay for those 2 months, whether it be with board members or renting apartment for them. And we now consolidated it nicely to a home right around the corner.
And if I'm not mistaken, you give them bikes to use, right?
We do.
Yeah.
You'll see them tooling about Utica on the bikes that have been donated to Sculpture Space.
You were mentioning to me before the show, George, that you've got somebody in residence now who comes to Utica from Bosnia via England. Did I get that right?
Yeah, she lives in England. She was a Bosnian refugee as a child. She's coming into Utica to interact with the Bosnian community. We have a wonderful Bosnian community here in town, and she's come to work with them in a community-based social practice artwork.
Mm-hmm. And what a place for her to be right now. I mean, because with the Bosnian community we have, and she's using, you were telling me, some historic pieces that she's found around town?
Yeah, she's finding these typically everyday household items from antique stores or the Restore downtown, and she's using them and combining them in such a way that it evokes a different feeling about what these objects are, what they represent, and it makes you think a little bit.
Yeah, you've been down there for a long time, and you've seen a lot of successful artists come and go through here. On the international scene, are these some pretty prominent people that have come through Sculpture Space?
Very prominent people have come through Sculpture Space over the years. We have a number of decades under our belt, and Sculpture Space still remains one of the only truly sculpture residencies that it's out there. It's still a space where you can create large work, small work, a varied medium work. We have a good history and a good reputation within the community of residents.
Do artists come here and sometimes not be successful?
I think every residency is successful. You can't base success on a residency on the product that's produced, because a lot of times the artist is here to experiment, simply to sort of be released from the obligation of creating a finished piece and to really experience new materials or a new process to work with old materials. A residency is in place primarily to allow that artist the breathing space to create. We don't put any limitations on them. We don't tell them they must produce X, Y, or Z. We allow them to be in that space for 2 months to allow their creativity to breathe.
And when they come up with a piece of art after their 2 months here, and the piece of art, I'm assuming, is usually finished in time or not? Maybe not?
It can be, it can not be. We've had some artists that had a very successful time at Sculpture Space without producing a finished work, and only producing maquettes or models of perhaps future ideas.
What about a piece of art that is finished, it's done, the artist owns it, or does Sculpture Space own it?
That's usually a conversation that we have with the artist. If it's a piece that's too large to bring back to their home or to another space where it's going to be displayed, we'll talk about that before the work starts commencing. A good example is the piece you were talking with Charlie Fisher about, John Melvin's sculpture from Nirvana water bottles. That's actually going to the Utica Zoo. We're looking to install that in front of the Sea Lion Park. And that was a conversation that John and Tom, our ED, had prior to the conception of the piece. And we're working through that. It's going to be John's piece. He owns it, and it'll be displayed with the Utica Zoo.
Don't they have, speaking of, I don't know if you'd call it sculpture, and I guess you would, the teapot, the water pot?
Yes.
From the,
the watering
the sprinkler.
Can. Yes.
Yeah. That's up at the Utica Zoo still, is it not?
Yeah, it is. It's right near the hops trellis. Yeah.
The future of Sculpture Space, from your perspective, how do you see? It's not that big of a building. I mean, there seems to be ample space, but do you see anything getting enlarged down there or not?
We would love to. We have a lot of bigger ideas. There's space aplenty to expand. The building, as you know, is a piece of the old steam engine boiler works buildings. And we have expanded a little bit onto that over the years. We have just renovated the entire inside and added 5 individual studios as well as a new office space for the studio. We're hoping that at some point in the future we can add an annex, maybe as a gallery, or perhaps a maker space where community members can come in and pay a rental fee to have access to the equipment and to some expertise on that equipment. A lot of ideas in the works. Of course, all of that comes with good funding and good patron support from the community.
Yeah, it's not the way it used to be with 501c3s. You're a 501c3, right?
We are, yeah.
Yeah, it's not the way it used to be where there was all this government money out there. It's these 501c3s have to fend for themselves pretty much, huh?
Yeah, we do. The nonprofit is definitely the way to go. We like the idea of being able to express ourselves how we wish. The government funding is helpful, but the patron support is essential. So having friends in the community and outside of the community to lend their support financially or with volunteer support, that's always helpful.
And one of the ways they can do that, of course, is September 29th.
Yes, $40 tickets until the 15th. From the 15th until the day of, they're $50 tickets. As you walk in and pay, it'll be a $60 ticket. But all of that money goes into support Sculpture Space. And you get to see an array of amazing artwork locally and internationally to bid on.
And it's kind of a social time too, drinks and.
Oh, it's great. We come in at 4:30. Things start with the silent auction till about 6 o'clock or so. Then we'll shut that down. But that whole time is mingling, interacting. There's drinks, there's food, there's music. We have a DJ playing this year. And at 6:30 the live auction starts.
And if anybody wants to go online, I bet you there's a website they could check this out on, yes?
Yes, please go to sculpturespace.com. You can check us out on Facebook as well and see some of the particulars there.
Thanks for coming in. Good luck on that event, the charity auction.
Thank you very much, Joe. Please celebrate with us.
Okay, I'm going to try. That's it for today. We'll be back next time. We'll do it all again. Don't forget cnyhomepage.com. Speaking of websites, there's a lot of good stuff there. Until next time, take care of yourself, everybody.